Hello, I'm back again. It's been quite a long time. I started working on my little graphics game. Well, I changed it from being called a engine or framework to a boilerplate because I think that's a better description. Um, and so far, I think it's coming along real well. I actually revised the particles a little bit. I made them faster and I made it so you can do cool things like that. So when I press the 0 button, it just changes the particle emitter. Um, you'll notice the character model is actually a poorly modeled Roblox like guy, and his normals aren't correct, so the lighting is weird with him. I did that because I wanted to test out my old importer and exporter again, which it was working great before, but I guess it decided to stop working. The reason it stopped working actually wasn't my issue, it was Blender's. So what they did is on their update, their big update, their 18 or 8 or whatever that was, they made it so .dae files didn't work well anymore. So when you try to import one of their exported DAE files, it doesn't work. So I just switched to GLTF, which works great. It's actually a fantastic file format that works really well on WebGL, so I'm planning to keep using it. Lighting changed a bit. I added a skybox, which is pretty cool. One of the biggest things that I added was scene changing. So when I press 7, the scene changes. There's no other player here. There's no cube. This one, it's just nothing, and the physics engine glitches out because there's something that I need to fix here. This one, back to normal. This one, there's a cube, and still works when I hit the cube with my character. The bone collision system still works. I added a day-night cycle, a day-night cycle, and you could see the shadows move based on the light's direction, and the light's direction is updated. Um, when I click my left mouse button, then the shadows move and the light's direction changes. Pretty straightforward. One thing I want to note is I also added, or I integrated Bullet 3's physics debugging system in a better way. So now you can see there's colors like the white, black, and green for all of the lines, like the collision lines. So those lines on the player actually calculate the steps, and I showed that in my last video, but last time they weren't visible. So you could see when I go up the stairs, yeah, the lines move. One thing that I did integrate, which actually makes it a lot better, is smooth steps. So back then, it used to be choppy when you went up the steps, and now it's smooth. That's because instead of using the highest point of the ray's collision, it uses the average. So like you're here, it averages out the collision on those black rays. Um, and then it pushes the player up to that point. Back then, it would actually just push that player up to the highest point, just so it would be choppy. But now, since there's more rays, it's very smooth. There's other ways to do this, but this is the way that works well for what Bullet is built for. At least, I think so. It definitely does its job, and I'm happy about that. So when I press 5, it'll switch back to highest point, which is choppier, but I don't think you'll be able to see it because I'm only filming using 30 FPS and the physics engine runs at 30 FPS. But if I press 5 again, it's a lot smoother. Yeah. Um, so that's that with the game. I mean, there's probably some features that I forgot to mention. Oh yeah, top right, you could see the shadow map. So that helped me debug some issues that I had with shadows. That's just for the directional light. It's kind of hard to render a depth map for the omnidirectional ones, but those have always worked fine. Anyway, one other thing, I updated the GitHub repository and I integrated CMake with Visual Studio's cross-platform development system. So Visual Studio released a version of Visuals of Visuals. Microsoft released a version of Visual Studio that makes it a lot easier to develop for Linux on a Windows machine. Basically, what they do is they make it so you can just connect remotely into a Linux machine from a Windows system, and you could build for that Linux machine on a Windows system. And that's pretty great in my opinion. It makes things a lot easier. So I'm doing that. Everything's set up with CMake, which makes things cross-platform. I mean, so you could also build it just directly on Linux using Linux rather than Linux using Windows. So that's cool. There's a lot of build steps though, but if you do want to build this, you can. I never tried building on Linux from a Linux machine, but if you know how to work with CMake and Make, then it shouldn't be an issue. So yeah, I just finished a milestone that I had, or I'm basically done with it, the revise and clean one. And there's only 3 things left. I just need to verify the build on Linux. I want to double check. I want to change my naming convention for the assets. So now you can see uppercase, 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 lowercase, perfectly named. This is how I want everything to be named. But if you'll go into here, you'll see that I have, it's like, what's that, a copy? And then it's lower camel case, and then there's upper camel case. I don't want that, so I'm going to change that. I'm going to make it just all lowercase, separated by whatever those things are called, dashes, I guess. I can't think of the name. And that'll help me a lot because sometimes I get confused with typing a name, and that's okay on Windows, but on Linux they can't accept that. They actually are very case sensitive. So I'm gonna do that. And also another thing I forgot to mention, the multi-sample count is now you're able to, well, now it works better. So instead of just putting a static number in the program and saying, okay, I want you to render with multi-sampling at 2, now it detects the highest rate and it'll set it at that. So this actually fixed a seg fault that I had with Linux because my Linux machine, it was running with a higher sample rate than it could handle, and it just crashed. So yeah, that's why I did that, and that'll be useful for like a settings menu. And I want to integrate on GUI so I could add a bunch of debugging features and work on all that. I'm not sure. I don't think I would ever use it as a main UI system for like a game, but maybe I will. You can customize it a lot, and it's a very great library. So another thing, I have render textures. I just keep thinking of more things. I'm sorry. So basically everything renders to a texture, and I render that texture to a quad. So if I put it in wireframe right now, it would show just a quad being rendered. I do want to change that eventually once I add an IMGUI, but that's okay for now. I don't really need to see anything in wireframe. So that's great if I want to add in bloom, which I'm pretty sure I want to. So you would just take that texture, you would calculate the brightest colors, I guess, and then you would blur those colors and put it onto the same texture. So that's what render textures are for. Anyway, enough of that. I think I explained a decent amount on what I did. If you want to see more, then make sure you check out my GitHub repository. And that's all. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, a fantastic week, month, year, lifetime, I guess. And I also hope that you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it enough to want to subscribe, then please do. That'd be great. And if you don't feel like subscribing, no pressure there. I get it. There's actually a statistic out there. I don't know where I saw it, but if you ask people to subscribe, well, you somehow end up with more subscribers. So that's what I'm doing right now. Anyway, I'll talk to you hopefully soon. I know it's been a while, but I want to make more videos and update this project more. I mean, it's a great project and I love working on it. So, bye.